The optimism, I think, from the people is high about where we're going under President Trump's leadership.
The optimism from the people is high. That is Interior Secretary Doug Burgum. And Donald Trump must have some kind of blackmail photos on him. Because as the University of Michigan Index just found, consumer sentiment is now at the lowest level ever recorded, going back to 1952.
My database goes back to 1978. The new read, 47.6. I don't have anything up back to 78 that's any lower than that.
Lower than sentiment during COVID when we were literally all locked down and couldn't leave our homes? Are we sort of factoring in, be it the Fed or the economists among us, just what that type of sentiment would likely do to the consumer and consumer behavior?
Well, that's a big question. Are people going to be cutting back?
Usually when confidence or sentiment drops, consumers stop spending as much. And that can have a huge drag on the economy. Because in the United States, consumer confidence influences about 2/3 of all economic activity.
GDP numbers for the fourth quarter showed consumer spending had gone down, and the spending numbers we got from the February PCE report were not particularly great. So are Americans pulling back? It seems that they likely are.
And yet, from Interior Secretary Doug Burgum to Donald Trump to Trump's economic advisors, the talking point continues to be the economy is strong. But even the regular contributors on Fox Business News are ridiculing the claims.
Economist John Lonsky with me this morning. Extremely strong economy. I don't think you agree with that.
No, I don't agree with that at all. I mean, if the economy was extremely strong, why is U.S. consumer sentiment at a record low? I can't figure this out. I think you have to pay attention to consumer attitudes.
Even the hosts on Real America's Voice, which is the most pro-Trump channel anywhere, are pointing to consumer frustrations over soaring gas prices.
People don't want me to mention gas prices. That's become an attack on Trump, but gas prices are a real thing. They're not just in our gas tank, but in our consumer goods, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
And I think that they don't know from day to day whether we're in a ceasefire or not, because it changes every day. I think we're just watching what David Brody predicted from day one, and you too, frankly, Terrence, that this is not going to be a simple war to solve. Wars aren't simple by their very nature.
And the war in Iran, which continues to bottleneck oil and fertilizer cargo ships in the Persian Gulf, is causing inflation to keep going higher. The rising prices are inescapable, especially for smaller U.S. companies and businesses. Businesses with fewer than 500 employees account for half of the entire U.S. workforce and represent 44% of all U.S. economic activity.
But the small businessman, they're still, they have it tough. They're struggling. You have narrowing of profit margins, higher costs. And the person who was just on talking about beef. Yeah, I think it's incredible to stop and think right now that in this area, I believe that the average price for a hamburger at a neighborhood bar and grill is approaching $20. That's incredible. You want to order a steak? $35 to $40. And I'm not talking about a fancy restaurant in Manhattan.
There are still, of course, countless Trump cheerleaders in Manhattan and far removed from average Americans who insist Donald Trump is making America stronger and that the economy is doing well. Fox News host Harris Faulkner just proved her fealty to Trump again in covering the naval blockade of Iran.
The Pentagon just releasing new video showing U.S. forces boarding a sanctioned tanker. It says it was moving Iranian oil. So the U.S. blockade continues to deliver here.
Side note, do you think Harris Faulkner has any self-awareness of how ridiculous she sounds? Good grief.
So the U.S. blockade continues to deliver here.
In the meantime, gasoline prices in the United States over the past 6 weeks have soared by 25%.
And we know that gasoline prices take a bite out of what you spend on other things. So it's very possible that the April numbers we get are going to be kind of ugly.
Uglier than the numbers for consumer sentiment and inflation we have now. And within the Fox empire, the cracks are getting bigger. Fox Business host Stuart Vardy pressed Interior Secretary Doug Burgum about Iran's ongoing chokehold on global energy supplies.
Super unstable, and their leadership is in complete disarray.
They are lasting out a little bit longer than expected, aren't they?
Well, I don't think. It depends on who you ask. I mean, this is a group of folks that literally are. Think of them as a terrorist organization, not a country. They're going to last as long as they can cling to power.
That may be true, but it's also true that the economic gloom in the United States predates the Iran war. Americans have been feeling down about the Trump economy for a year.
Sentiment readings for the past year have all been actually very, very low. And so consumers have been frustrated for some time. Given that we're in a wartime situation, it's not surprising that consumers have kind of heightened awareness and heightened worries about what's going on in the economy. Interestingly, we didn't really see too much of a reaction with respect to labor market expectations. They did sour a little bit relative to last month, but within range of what we were seeing in the last year. And that stands in contrast to personal finance expectations and business conditions. Those are much worse than we had been seeing previously.
Personal finance, meaning how Americans are balancing their budgets, and business conditions, as in the environment for business operations, those sentiments have literally fallen off a cliff. And aside from the day-to-day struggles Americans are facing, there is also the significant political impact, because management of inflation is the #1 election issue for voters.
Just take a look at these net approval ratings when it comes to inflation. The President of the United States is hitting all-time record lows in all of these polls, and all of them. NBC came out yesterday, 36 points underwater. CBS came out a few weeks ago, 38 points underwater. Ipsos, Reuters, 43 points underwater. CNN came out earlier this month, 45 points underwater. And taking the cake is UMass Amherst, 47 points underwater across all of these polls. Trump is in his worst position ever on the issue that the American people say over and over and over again is their key #1 issue.
And that's why many political analysts across the spectrum now expect a political tsunami in the midterm elections, wiping out Republican congressional candidates and giving Democrats control of both the House and the Senate. Donald Trump, his cabinet secretaries, and his remaining media sycophants can say whatever they want and wish whatever they want. But the daily financial struggles and challenges with inflation and gas prices have put Americans in a grim mood. And according to the data on the economy, it's the worst public mood ever recorded. By the way, FBI Director Kash Patel has now been exposed by his own lawsuit.
I was never locked out of my systems. Anybody who says
your lawsuit says the opposite. Your lawsuit
anyone that says the opposite is lying. Thank you.
Patel lawsuit, quote, Director Patel had a routine technical problem logging into a government system, which was quickly fixed. Check out that video at the link below. It generated a lot of comments on YouTube. One of the most popular from Greg Williams, who wrote, "Can't wait for the Atlantic to get their discovery." Indeed. I look forward to reading your comments about the Trump cabinet secretaries getting grilled, as even conservative media has stopped buying their BS. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.